In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that the whole world should be enrolled. This was the first enrollment, when Quirinius was governor of Syria. So all went to be enrolled, each to his own town. And Joseph too went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David that is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and family of David, to be enrolled with Mary his betrothed, who was with child. While they were there, the time came for her to have her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them at the inn. This is a story you probably know fairly well. It's the story that we're preparing to celebrate in just a few days' time. The birth of Jesus, the birth of the Messiah. And among many things that makes this particular birth unique among any person who has ever been born is the fact that Jesus got to choose the circumstances of his birth. None of the rest of us ever got to choose anything like that. He got to choose who his parents were. He got to choose when he was born. He got to choose where he was born. And when you look at these as something he did on purpose, there are certain lessons, certain things we can take from the story of the birth of Jesus. Certain things we can know about God. When you look at his parents, one of the things that becomes very clear is that Jesus didn't choose the superstars of his generation. He chose a young woman, not much older than a lot of you who are watching this. He chose Joseph, a simple carpenter. He didn't choose them because they were well educated. He didn't choose them because they were rich. He didn't choose them because they stood out for any reason, other than the fact that they had a deep, deep trust in God. Mary's willingness to put her whole life in God's hands and to accept the responsibility of becoming the mother of the Messiah speaks to the depth and the richness of her faith. Joseph's willingness to listen to what God said to him in a dream also speaks to the depth and the richness of his faith. And we want to imitate them. We want to be like them. We want to be the sort of people who can learn what it is to trust God. If we were choosing the time for Jesus to be born, it might have made more sense to say, well, be born now when we have instantaneous communications. We could have Instagrammed all of the miracles that Jesus performed. But God chose that moment, 20 centuries ago, as the moment for the birth of his son. Jesus chose that moment to be born. Because God's timing is not our timing. God's ways are not our ways. Because God sees a bigger picture than we do. And there are lots of moments where we would want God to act or do things in a certain way. But Garth Brooks has a great song called Unanswered Prayers, where he reflects on his life and all the moments where God didn't answer his prayers, where God didn't do things the way he would have done it. And he sees, looking back, how much better it is that God did it his own way, not the way Garth Brooks or you or I might have done it. God is working, and God's time is not our time. And the place in which Jesus was born, in a stable, it's a place that would have been a mess. Sure, our nativity scenes show it as looking like this wonderful, clean place where Jesus and Mary and Joseph are. But if you've ever been around a farm or a zoo or around pets, you know that where there are animals, there is a mess. And Jesus chose to be born there. And I always think that this is critically important because sometimes we look at ourselves and say, God wouldn't want anything to do with me because I'm a mess, because I've screwed this up or I've screwed that up, because I don't live up to the standard that I think God would want. Well, the God who chose to be born in that Bethlehem stable 20 centuries ago is not scared of a little bit of a mess. He's not scared of a lot of a mess either. And so it doesn't matter how messy your heart or your life might be. God's willing to come there. God's willing to meet you there. And God's willing to lead you out of there. So as we prepare to celebrate this great celebration of Christmas, and we consider the fact that Jesus is the one person in history who got to choose who and when and where he was born, understand that in the same way as he chose that, he also chooses you. He chooses you to be someone to know him. He chooses you to be someone who can know his love. And he chooses you to be someone who can follow him. It may not make sense to you. You might not think you're all that, and you might think you're a mess. But he chose that before. And he chooses it again.